Okay, so in this short video we're going to be looking at elements of speech writing for those carrying out CBAs while we're at home, or those practicing speech writing for junior or leaving cert. I'm just going to go through a couple of quick elements of speech writing when you're writing speeches to make sure to include these elements to make it a good speech. Also, if you're trying to analyze a speech, you may want to use these words in terms of getting marks for analysing in comprehension section A's and leaving cert, or in unseen text in junior cert. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is engage your audience. Okay, so what we mean by that is we must engage them in the introduction. Say who you are talking to and explain what are you going to be talking about. Number 2, structure. Speeches must have a beginning, a middle and a conclusion. Okay, much like stories, speeches are the same. Number 3, personal pronouns. Using pronouns like I, we, us, you is an effective way of building a relationship with the reader. It is up to every one of us here today to tackle climate change. Leonardo DiCaprio used this in a speech about climate change. He talked about us. It makes people feel part of the crowd. It also makes them think you're talking to them, and it keeps them engaged. 4, very common, both if you're analysing to look as anecdotes used, or if you're writing a speech, you should have an anecdote. Tell a story in your speech that has a meaning. It may be personal or about someone else. It is a good way to keep people interested. I recently went to the North Pole, where I saw that many of the ice caps have melted, causing polar bears great distress. So that anecdote is designed to get people to think about climate change. It's designed to get people to feel sorry for polar bears. Okay, so an anecdote usually has a point. You're trying to make a point to people that they need to take action. Okay, if you're doing your CBA and if you're doing it on a particular person, you may tell an anecdote about their life. If it's your grandfather, tell an anecdote about his early life. If it's a celebrity, tell an anecdote about their early life. We mentioned before about Stephen Gerrard, his autobiography, where he had an anecdote about kicking a ball out of a bush of nettles, and he kicked a fork. He ended up in hospital where he almost had his foot removed, only for Steve Highway to come in and say that they couldn't do it. The readers left thinking what could have happened had Steve Highway not come in. So that was an anecdote from his life. So anecdotes are an interesting way of engaging the audience. Repetition. This is a very effective tool, as it can have an impact on the listener. We must do what it takes to help our planet. We must be the pioneers of the future. We must be the light in the darkness. That we must continuously there, the repetition highlights that we must do something. Okay, so repeating things over and over. The purpose of repeating something is to make sure people understand. Number 6, rhetorical questions. We all have heard these before, rhetorical questions. Questions that do not require an answer from the audience, but it makes them think about the issue and gets the audience involved in the speech. So, are we prepared to sacrifice our children's lives by taking an easy option? Or are we willing to make sacrifices now so our children's lives can blossom? Most people will answer yes to that, okay? They don't have to answer it out loud, but you're making them think about the question. You're making them think about what is their answer. So in your CBA, if you're doing one, ask a rhetorical question. If it's, say, on smoking, do we think it's appropriate for people to be inhaling these type of toxins on a daily basis? If it's about drugs, do we think it's okay that the amount of drugs on the street is increasing year by year? Ask a question that people don't have to answer. They just have to think about it. Triadic structure, we mentioned this before, sounds complicated. It's not. Much like repetition, triadic structure works on the same basis where similar words are repeated in threes. It is often said that things said in groups of 3 have the greatest impact. We have sought justice in the past, we seek justice today, and we will seek justice in the future. Or, it is my dream that one day we will see a world where people of all race and creed can find equality, liberty, and freedom. Okay? Word, and word. Okay? Equality, liberty, and freedom. Much better impact on the audience. Okay? The last thing I'm going to ask you to do in your CBA, if you're doing something on an issue like smoking, drugs, mental health, anything to do with an issue that you feel strongly about, you have to have a call to action. So the last one we're going to have here, a call to action is where you're asking the audience to do something. So most speeches have a call to action. This means you are encouraging the listeners to do something, to make a difference. I ask each and every one of you to leave this room tonight and do what you can to halt global warming. Okay, so you're asking them to halt global warming. Okay, it's your last thing you're doing in your speech. So if you have done your speech for the CBA, go back over, C, can you identify the elements within it? If you're analysing speeches, make sure you're using the key elements. If you're asked how is it a good speech, it uses anecdotes, it uses rhetorical questions, it uses triadic structure. Okay, those keywords will get you marks. Okay, that's all we have. Thank you.